Madam Chair. Dr. Long, I want you to expand on the CCUS Energy Hub that you mentioned. What exactly does that look like, and would that solve some of the problems you said about fundamental science being needing to be focused on more?
Yeah, the tools that scientists are using today are completely different from, the tools that were used when our current carbon capture technologies were discovered. And we've made advances in how to build materials and control absorption within materials and diffusion through porous materials because of those tools, because of advanced computational techniques. And that's not being leveraged here for new carbon capture technologies, and it's also not being leveraged for utilization. And so
Does it
taking
require
advantage
authorization from Congress, funding?
So I believe the energy hubs are approved through this committee.
Yeah.
And so, having these hubs, what these hubs mean are sustained long-term funding for scientists to think about, how do we do this in the most energy efficient and cost-effective manner?
Yeah.
How do we create materials that will revolutionize the future ways in which we do CO2 capture and perhaps convert it into all kinds of products? There's not, that funding for fundamental science to drive future technology doesn't, there should be a lot more of it in this area.
Understand. Mr. Dewing, in your testimony, you talked about retrofitting of existing hydrogen facilities, and I want to go back to this new source review. Are you familiar with new source review? Okay, then I won't ask that question. We'll just move on. I will say it's nice to be in a hearing where we have a lot of viable solutions, and we've discussed a few of them. We've talked about energy hubs and the authorization needed for that. Interesting ideas like reclassifying CO2 as a commodity. It's interesting because it really is. It's used in EOR. You can make plastics. We could possibly one day make gasoline out of it. Maybe this gets back to something we should research as a fundamental science in an energy hub. I've also heard it could be used for agriculture, of course. I mean, you can talk about a greenhouse that needs multiple times the CO2 that is present in normal air, algae farms, things like that. There really is, algae farms that truck in CO2 every single day. There really is a market for that. It sounds like we need 45Q flexibility, additional flexibility in that to provide for the incentives to actually capture CO2 and then utilize it. CO2 infrastructure, pipelines. We need to stop vilifying pipelines in this country. That would be great. It would be great if the Northeast wasn't relying on shipping from Russia to get their natural gas and heating in their homes. DOE grants have proven to be a fundamental part, it sounds like, of incentivizing and getting this technology off the ground. And let me be clear, Mr. Kennedy, you guys are at a point where you can operate in a standalone way. Is that correct? Or do you still need those grants and still need those tax incentives?
Economics continue to be challenged. Like I mentioned, we're a little bit uniquely structured given the way we are with the oil field and stuff. But the focus on this next generation and stuff, hopefully driving costs down. But I think any new project, regardless of first generation, second generation, is going to need 45Q to support that.
Right.
And government grants as well and additional R&D.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. And these aren't enormous costs on the economy. We can get you started. We can maintain some kind of incentive structure, and as the technology improves, there's a real market for CO2 where eventually you can stand on your own. When we're talking about solutions, and again, I want to get back to this main truth, which is that America is the innovation capital of the world. And ignoring that or destroying that capability by destroying the fossil fuel industry is actually bad for the environment. And that seems counterintuitive, but it's really not. And we've proven why today, because the rest of the world, and especially countries that emit far more carbon dioxide than we do, are relying on America to be the innovation engine of the future. We can't ignore that, and we have to be doing exactly what we've been talking about today to incentivize that and really keep this miracle going where we can actually have our cake and eat it too. mean, that's a pretty great thing. We can continue economic development, we can continue being the greatest, richest country in the world, helping other countries continue to develop, but also clean up the environment. And I think that's a really cool thing. So I wanted to say thank you again for having me at this wonderful subcommittee hearing.